Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Decryption, and I hope you are well. In the past 4 videos, we've put together this Batman Arkham-inspired death scene scenario where we can tap play, an animation plays, the guy speaks.
Even the crows shall croak on your unworthy flesh.
Does something else, and then he walks off, showing the menu ready for it to go. So you can continue on. But the biggest request we've got for this, and the next logical step, is how do we actually get to this scene? So today we're going to make however you die in game is the way that this scene will load up. So let's get started. Just saying a thank you to Cinti for sponsoring this video. They've just released their brand new sci-fi robot sidekicks pack. It's got so many modular parts to create some really nice looking robots. Some of them just look really cool. I've been playing around with it to generate my own. And I've got a couple of variations here where I've got a friendly bot with a nice little eye emoji that I'm going to look at animate with some missiles. I've got the one I call the stutter bot because he looks like he's going to stutter and fall to pieces, but he's got chainsaw arms. And I've got the round head robot that I'm like is 99% sure is a Power Rangers bad guy with the round head. I'm pretty sure it is, but it looks really cool either way. I'm looking forward to working with these on a project soon. But there is an affiliate link in my description, so if you do go to pick this up, I would appreciate you clicking it. It does a small kickback to me, and it shows Cinti that people love the packs. But yes, Cinti Sidekicks pack, modular, you can add it with all your other Sidekick packs, it's really cool. Thanks for Cinti for sponsoring this video. This video is going to be a little bit tricky to do, because every single person is going to have their own way and own method of their character dying, right? And it's going to be a variety of difficulty depending on what your system is. So I'm going to try and break it down as easy as we can in order to actually do it so you can implement this into your game. Now, on our player controller for the death scene, we've set up this function called get death scene, and everything after this is pretty much how we launch the entire death scene. So if I come and switch it to the Elven faction and change the NPC's name to Warden, or the police of the Elven race, an animation will indeed play. I need to clean it up, but it will play perfectly. We have not added sound to it, but that's how it works. So when you pretty much need to call this death scene, you need to open this level, because we've made it an isolated level, because it's far easier to be here. You could go around spawning all of this in, positioning everything in the right place, even loading the level instance, but then you've got to contend with all the lighting. We've very specifically made the lighting work the way it is. So you'd have to turn off all the lighting. That's going to be massively computational to do. It's just far easier to move levels. In my case, if you've got a dungeon crawler, you could probably just spawn it outside. But what I'm planning to do is open this level up, and then we're going to basically populate these values here, and then let the scene continue on. So it'll basically do nothing until it's picked a scene, a little like this one here. So if I disconnect these 2 nodes and click play, we'll just remain in darkness, because everything has to call that node to initiate itself. So how do we transfer data between the 2 levels, or at least in general? So we basically need a medium that can store these 4 values here, right? It'd be better if that's temporary, but we can handle it however we can. So what I'm actually going to do, just to make this a little bit easier, is I'm going to come to my Blueprints Structs folder, and inside Death Scene, I'm going to create a new blueprint structure called s_death details, and I'm going to open it up. And I'm essentially just going to recreate these 4 variables inside here. So I'll do my faction, but of course you might not have a faction. I'll do my NPC's name. I'll do the damage type, which is what we added so we can specifically choose how you died as a further potential option. And just remember to set that as a soft class reference. And then for me, I'm also going to do a quest, which will be a type of narrative quest, but of course you might not have that unless you're using narrative, and it will be another soft class reference. And what this means is we now have a really easy way that if we just temporarily go s_death details, we can plug these details in just like so, right? So the medium I'm going to use in this case is going to be the game instance. If you have one of these, great, you can follow along in a moment. If you don't, all you need to simply do in your Blueprints folder, right-click Blueprint Class, and search for Game Instance. And you want the standard game instance, not the platform-specific one. And then once you've done it, go to Edit, Project Settings, maps and modes, and just make sure you set your game instance here. A game instance is good because as soon as your game loads up, the game instance forever stays there. It never removes itself until you close the game down. So it's great if you want to pass little bits of data around your game. It's great for like high scores and stuff like that. But you don't want to be putting anything heavy in there that's going to take up a bunch of memory. It's really good for things that must be over the world that you can't handle with saving. So when I'm on my main level and I die, I can store the data inside here, move across to the new level, load the data, and then clear it out again. So inside here, I'm just going to add a new variable called death details, and I'll just set its type to be death details, like that. You don't need to make it instance editable because we're not going to be creating different instances of it or modifying it directly. And then we need a way to update and get the data from this. So I'm going to use a interface because I've already got one set up for my game instance. So just right click in your interfaces folder, blueprint interface, and I'll come and open mine up. And I'm just going to create two functions, one called set death details, and I'm going to make sure I input the details of it, and the type will be our sDef details. I'll set the category to be death, because why not? And then I'll add another function called getDef details. It just means you don't have to cast the game instance everywhere. And I'll just make sure this outputs the same details with the same type, and we can move it up into the def one as well. Hit compile and save. And if you've already got your interface on here, you don't need to worry about it on your game instance. But if you don't, just add your interface that you've just created. And then we can come and find the two functions in here. So in def, double click get, and we'll just pass it the details. And then we can double click set, and I can just set the details like so. We can hit compile and save. Great. So now back on our player controller death scene. After we've got all of this event begin play, let's make a little bit of space. After it sets the camera to be dark so we can't see anything, then I will right click and do get game instance, and we can drag off and do get death details, and I can connect it to there. And now that we've got this, we can drag off of here and do break, and we can connect all of these up in one nice simple way, like so. Now, we technically, if we were to run this scene as it is, it would actually error because we've not given it an NPC name or a faction. And in my death scene, I have made the NPC name mandatory. So they're the two mandatory fields it needs to find what it needs. You might not have done that, in which case you could add something else to it, like a Boolean, just to check that it has got valid data. But what I'm going to do for mine is I'm just going to drag back and make some space, and I'm going to drag off the NPC name and say, is the text empty, right? If it is empty, then I'm going to drag from the NPC name and just do select, just for debugging, drag that out of there, and plug the text is empty to the index. If it is empty, I'm just going to do a dead basic one and do guard, because that'll be a default one. If it's not empty, then I can plug the default one in. This just means that now we can technically run this scene still, and nothing bad will happen. It will still work. But it means when we do pass this data in, it will also work, so we can still use it with a debug mode as well. So that's pretty much how we sync it up and how we can call it from any place at this point now. So how do we go about actually doing that? And it really is just as simple as setting the set death details and then calling open level. You could technically call it right here from the game instance and make it load the death level, which would be a valuable option. However, I'm not going to do that because it actually masks it a little bit. Because it's not set death details and open scene, it's set death details. Yes, we're going to have to put the open seat level in multiple places, potentially, but it gives us a lot more fine-grained control over it. So if you want to set the details, do a bunch of logic and then open it, you can. So let's give it a go then. So I'm going to use our fantastic dev tool to create a dev map where we can just practice dying. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I'll just call it dying scene. Yeah, it's going to be useful, and I'll just set it to all the normal stuff and click create map. If you like that tool, visit my past video where we show how to create it. It's dead easy, no C++. It's so good. And then, just like normal, I'm just going to give the nav mesh a bit of a wobble. There we go. And if I come here and click play, I can successfully run around like normal, right? Dev scene. Super basic. So if I just come and open up my normal player controller, my PC sandbox, that's what mine's called, but your normal player controller that controls your actual game. And then all I'm going to do for testing is just do debug key 1, and then all we have to do is right click get game instance, drag off and do set death details. And then drag back from the details and do make. And then we can now populate it with whatever we want. So in this case, I'll just put basic details in. And then you can do anything else you want. And then we can call our open level. So death scene. And we'll hit compile and save. And in theory, we can now run around and we can press 1. And the game will change. And we've died with that specific character. And we can prove this by coming back and setting it to the Elven Warden. In my case, because that's what I set up. Press 1, it goes back over, I've been killed by that guy, right? And this is where it starts to get a bit tricky as a tutorial as a whole. That's how you do it, essentially. But like I said, every game is going to have a completely different way of handling death. If you use Narrative Pro, you'll have their built-in death system. If you have Combat Fury, they have one. ACF probably has one. You might even have your own custom one. It's going to be very, very different for everybody, right? I'm going to show you 2 super basic ways of handling death if you generally have nothing at all. But the key thing you're looking for is a way to determine when your character's dead. Whether you have a health integer or not, something like that, we're going to look at something super basic. So this is my basic character because I'm using the GASP system, right? Technically, I am using the GAS gameplay ability system, which we'll get onto in a moment. But for now, the super basic way to do it, if you haven't got anything at all, double check, you don't want to have multiple conflicting sources, is the any damage event here. It's built into Unreal. It's how you receive damage. So if we just drag off of this and do print, and we can print out the damage here, hit compile and save, nothing will change in the game when you're running around, right? But in Unreal, there's this built-in pain-causing volume. So if we just drag this in and drop it like there, put it down, it's just a normal trigger box, right? But what it does is it causes damage to your player. So you can see it's pain-causing, damage per second is 1 second, and there's a bunch of other stuff it can do, such as a damage type where we can say, oh no, it's damage type fire, look. And if we just play this now, and just to make it so I can actually see where it is, I'm just going to come and place a basic cube in the middle of it, because otherwise I'm not going to see where it is. So it used to have an icon. I don't know why the icon's gone. But if I walk to that cube, I'm going to take damage, right? And if you look at the top corner here, when I walk up to the cube, every second it's going to print out that I'm taking 1 damage. There you go. It's still going. It looks like it's frozen. That's just because it's synced up. So that cube is essentially giving off radiation, if you wish. And what you can do with this is you can add a basic health variable down here, subtract the damage away from it, and then say if your health is less than, say, 0, then you can add a branch, and then you can go and call all the details that you need. And you've got the damage type, who instigated it, all stuff like that. If you get a character, or a pawn, or an actor, you can drag off of that and also choose apply damage, which is the reverse of this. Any damage is you have taken damage, apply damage is you are giving damage. So if you haven't got any damage system in play at all, you can just use the apply damage to deal damage, which will call this and then check the character's health. Super basic damage system, right? However, I'm not going to be using the any damage node because I'm using the gameplay ability system, so we're basically changing up how we apply damage and take it, stuff like that. So if you are using the gameplay ability system, one great way of handling this is on your base character's attribute set. If you follow my tutorial or many other tutorials, we often use the post gameplay effect execute. That tells you after an effect has taken hold of your character. And what we can do inside here is after we've checked the health hasn't gone above the max health, and after we've broadcast that the health has been updated, we can come in and we can say, is the get health less than or equal to 0? So have we died, essentially? And then inside here, with gameplay ability system, you typically only apply attribute changes via effects, so gameplay effect execute. We can get the effect that has caused the player to die. And this might be an effect that as soon as somebody slashes you, it applies slash damage, or it will be an effect that you got poisoned 10 minutes ago and it's finally going to take you out even though you're in the middle of combat. It's whichever effect does the dealing blow, essentially. So to get the effect that has done this, we actually have it all built in already. So if I just do const for a constant variable we're not going to change, and a type of f gameplay effect spec, and we'll make it a reference so we're not duplicating it, spec equals, and then we've got our data variable up here, effect spec, and that'll give us the specification of it. This gives us a bunch of different stuff, such as where it came from, what caused it, and all the details about the effect. So to get who caused it, we can simply do another const variable and do f gameplay effect context handle. We'll do another reference with an ampersand, and we'll call it context equals spec.get context, open close brackets, semicolon. And then from here, we can now do actor, and we'll do a pointer to them so we're not doubling up the memory. Killer equals, we'll just do an A actor, remember, equals the context.get original instigator. And that's the character who killed your player, essentially. So that'll be the ability system components owning actor. And now that we have the ability system components actor that did it, we can also get the one that has caused the effect, that has applied it, such as the weapon, potentially, or if it's a projectile, but it's fired by that killer. So if we just duplicate this line and change get instigator to get effect causer, and we can change the word killer to damage causer. And that's got us both those values. Now, when we originally built the death scene, we used the built-in Unreal's damage type, right? But that's not really the way the gameplay ability system works. So I'm going to make a slight change with this one, and instead of using the damage type built-in that's for the built-in damage system, I'm actually going to use the gameplay tags instead. So if I come and open up my gameplay effect here, just a basic one of damaging the player, where it simply gets the health and removes 2 from it instantly, we have this ability to add components to it. So if we add this here, you can see we have this tags this effect has. If you're following an older gameplay ability system, this will look slightly different, because you used to just have a bunch of gameplay tags, but now they've moved it into this fragment style pattern design. And we can come in here and we can create specific damage type gameplay tags. So I'm just going to click add here, and I'll do damage types dot fire, and we'll set the source to be gameplay tags.ini. And I can drop this down damage types, and I can also do poison, or I can do melee, and I can click add like so. And they're the types of effects we can do. So here I can say this one, when it damages the player, the damage type is a type of poison, because it's a magical effect, if you wish. And then back on our C++ here, we can now get those gameplay tags by doing f gameplay tag container, so all the tags, and you can see we'll just call it killer tags, and we can do spec.get all asset tags, and it wants the place where we're populating it because it's an out variable, so we're just doing that. It's essentially the same as doing it like that, but it just does it a little bit different. So now we've got the person who did it, the item that did it, if that's useful for you, and we've got the damage type with the key things for it. From the person who did it, we can also get the name, so that's super easy, but we'll do that blueprint side. We can get the item that did it, might be useful, but I'm not going to use it in mine, but I'll comment it out anyway. And then we've got the tags to determine the damage type. The only other one will be the quest, which we can also get blueprint side based on the quest that happens, or we'll find some cool logic to handle that. So the easiest way we can pass this data back to the player is I'm actually going to come and set up another event dispatcher like this one, but where we pass in these specific tags, if you wish, the data. So in my case, I'll say who killed the player and what tags did they do it with, and then the blueprint side we can get everything else we need. So I'm going to come back to base character attribute set.header or .h, and I'm going to duplicate this delegate up here, and I'll call it fDeath event. And the first property we'll pass in will be an A actor, and that will be the killer, which I'll pass as a pointer. Then the next one will be our f gameplay tag container, and it'll be damage types, because it might apply multiple damages. That is a potential option. And then down here, I will duplicate this on health changed event dispatcher or delegate, and I'll call it fDeath event on character death. And then back on our attribute setup here, we can simply come and call on character death dot broadcast, and it'll want the data for it, so we can simply do the killer, comma, and then we can do killer tags, semicolon. So what this is now going to come and do is every time our character changes their health with the via a gameplay effect, it's going to come in and set their health and call it like normal, so you can update your UI, do everything you want. But then if the health is below 0, we have officially died. So we're going to come down and we're going to get the actor that killed us, the tags of the effect, and pass it along like so. You can absolutely put as much more info in here if you want. If you want the specific effect, you can also do that. And with that, I'm just going to hit build. Now that's all loaded up, back on my sandbox character, I can drag all the way to the top, and after the event begin play, I can get the ability system component, I can get their attribute set, and the attribute set I want is my custom one for the base character. From this, I can then do assign on character death. And you can see it's now giving me everything we need right here to say when this player character has died. Now I will just note, this player character is my player character. It's not an NPC. I won't be using the gasp system for standard NPCs in case they die, but still. And then from here, we can pretty much do the logic we've done on the player controller. So all of this here. So I'll cut this and get rid of the debug key. Back on our sandbox character, I can come and paste it in, and I can connect it up like so. And all it needs is all the little bit of data that we need. So the faction we can get from the killer. So with my system, all my NPCs have their own data asset. So from the killer, I can just drag off and do get NPC data asset. And we can, from here, I can do get the faction. And this will get me their race, so I can connect that up to there. Don't ask why I use race and faction. I really need to fix that. I can connect this straight across. I can get their name from here, so I can do get name. I can connect it up like that. And then our damage type is no longer going to work here, but I am going to fix that outside of the video. But essentially what we're going to do is on here, I'm going to add a new damage tags, and we will call it gameplay tag container. And remember, you only need to do this if you're using the gameplay ability system. If you're not, you don't need to worry about it. And back on my character, I can now plug these tags into here, like so. And that'll save the data, move along to the open level. Back on the player death scene here, I won't be using the damage type eventually. I'll switch it out for something else. At the moment, I'm just going to ignore it. But I'll fix that later. And then we essentially have a way of dying now. Now, this pain-causing volume isn't going to work for me at the moment because I'm using the gameplay ability system and that doesn't work for us. So what I'm instead going to do is I'm going to drag in one of my very basic NPCs. So I'll just do a Knight's Guard. But what I'm going to do is modify this specific one just for testing here, so it causes damage to the player when we walk up to him. Super, super basic. You'd integrate this into your combat system typically. So I'm just going to open his blueprint, and I'm going to come and override his sphere on component begin overlap. I'm going to call from the other actor the get gameplay ability system component, and I'll check if it's valid using the question mark, because I like that node. So whatever walks into this NPC, if they've got a gameplay ability system, then I'm going to come and apply an effect to them. So from the gameplay ability system component, I'm going to do apply effect to target. And what this means is we can now pass in all the details. So the gameplay effect that I want to pass in, I'll just duplicate my existing one and call it damage player from NPC. So I'm just going to come and set it to a duration, and we'll open up the period and we'll say for 3 seconds, it's going to damage the player by -2. So back on this guard, I will just apply this gameplay effect. The first target, this is rather confusing, is the person we're damaging it with. The second target is the one who's giving the damage. So that will be our NPC, who I've just checked doesn't actually have an ability system component. Yes, I've not set my NPCs to be the right class. So let's change that around to base character. There we go. Now we can give the NPC the ability system component like so. I'll just set the level to 1. You can also add a context if you want to give more data, but I don't need to. And that should be it. We could also make it remove it when you exit. I'm not going to worry about that for now. And that means now if we try it and we run up, you will see the health will print out at the top every second, and it will take down the health until we get to 4, as you can see. Nice and easy. And if we run up and we execute it one more time, it should go to 2, and then it should kill us, and we transport over to the death scene. We may get an error here because it doesn't know what we're passing it, so chances are I'm using some stats on this knight that doesn't exist. So let's have a quick look. So he's a type of knights and he's part of the Knight Guard. So if I come and open up my death montages, let's have a quick look. in my data table death scenes. Do I have anything for the knight? And yes, I've called my knight guard, whereas in the data scene his name is guard, so we'll just change it. And now I'm going to change his effect to just do instant damage so it's quicker. So I'll just change it to -5 because I've only got 10 health. That way we're not having to wait loads of seconds. And now if I run up, I take 5 damage instantly, run up again, and then the death scene starts. And that is pretty much it, to be honest. There are so many ways we can handle this, but that's pretty much, the goal. So the real key thing about it is just calling this set death details and the open level whenever you want to change to the death scene. That's pretty much it. It is nice and easy, and it's really open and flexible to do. And you just really have to insert it into the correct position where you want it. And for the quest as well, if you're currently on a quest of the boss fight, you can plug this in somewhere to try and make it work for your game. So for example, if this character here was a boss, I might create a quest variable there. So when I die by him, I can check off the data asset, does it have a quest variable or something like that. The only other thing you're going to have to do, which is just more of a word of warning, is make it so the retry comes back to the current level. Because obviously you want to always remember the current level, don't you? If we just come and edit this struct and add a current level, if we just come and set this to a name, because you can't store a world object inside a struct, then we've got the current level we need to go back to. We could also add a transform for the current transform so we know where to put them back, and I'll set that to a transform. And then what we can also do is when we are killing the player here, we can add in the current level of what we're on. So we can do get current level name, and we can do get object name with get level to get the current level. I don't know why we have to flip it around like so. We can do it, that's fine, the casting's alright. And if you really want to, you could get the current transform. You'll probably use a checkpoint system for this, but for now, I'm just going to do get player pawn, and then we'll drag it off and we will do get act transform, and we can plug that in as well. So now that we're storing those details, we can now get back from it. So we've got everything set up to jump us to the death scene, but we need the death scene to be able to kick us back to the current level in the correct position. So if you just come and open your death screen variable here, the one where we say game over, when you click retry, currently it just opens up the main level for me, but we don't want that. Instead, what we want to do is do the get game instance again, and we want to get the death details. Instead of doing open level by object, we can do open level by name, and we can now break the details and plug the name into it. So that will successfully take us back to the correct level when we click retry now. And then the only other thing we need to do on our main player controller is on event begin play after you've done everything. So here I'm moving them to a door if we find a correct door to move to. But if it's true, but what we'll do is we'll get the game instance again, and this is where we can now get death details and we can move them into the correct position. So I'm just going to get the player pawn and I'm going to set their transform. So I'll do set act transform, we'll break on the details, and we'll plug in the transform into it. And just for niceness, we can click this break and click hide unconnected pins, and it just makes it look a lot neater. And for me, I'm going to connect this to here. If you follow the door tutorial, then that's just checking if we need to move the player to somewhere specific. So we can wrap this in a comment saying move player back after death. An alternative way of doing this, of course, is just reloading a checkpoint. That's a very common way of doing it. What I am going to do for niceness, though, is right at the end of this, after we've finished with the death details, I'm going to get the game instance again, and I'm going to set the death details back to nothing, so we're not storing anything in it at all. And that is just a nice little memory optimization, meaning we're not storing data that we're essentially not using at that point. And now we can try it. And you'll see now if I run up, I'll get hit by him, and then that's took 5 damage off of me. If I run up and do it again, I'll die, he'll speak. There we go, he's dead. And then we should see the menu and we can click retry and it should take us back and put us in the exact position we were. There you go. So we've essentially got the Batman death integration now. So I can come up and I can die from any means, and whoever kills me, we've got exactly the right way to call the Batman death screens. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. A bit of a long one integration-wise, and unfortunately this is super specific for every single game. But the key thing is, whenever you die, however you die in your game, you just need to call this set death details. One minor thing I did do that you might run into is get level name seems to work a lot better than get level, so I just transferred it over to there. Completely forgot to record that. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you don't want to do the current transform, that's totally okay. If you've got something like EMS, Easy Multi-Save Manager, or whatever the name of that plugin is, or a save system, you can just reload back to a checkpoint. That's going to be a really good way of doing it. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen. There is the death scene from Batman. There's still plenty more we can do to it. If you've got any suggestions, please let me know below. I am not a lighting expert, so if you've got any improvements for the lighting system, I'd love to hear it. But yes, there we go. We can die in any level, any way, and it will take us to the death screen and bring us back afterwards. How cool is that? So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this was helpful. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.